This episode is brought to you by the Water Lantern Festival, which is returning to Denver on July 10th, 11th, and 12th at the beautiful Carpenter Park in Thornton, Colorado. This family-friendly experience invites guests to gather by the water, decorate lanterns with personal messages of hope, remembrance, gratitude, or intention, and release them together at sunset. Tickets are available now at waterlanternfestival.com or the link in the show notes. That's waterlanternfestival.com. Welcome to CityCast Denver. I'm Paul Karolyi, and here's what Denver's talking about. All right, welcome to the show, everybody. It's Thursday morning. I was about to say Friday morning, but that's just because it's the last day of the week. This is a long holiday weekend, and we're looking back at the biggest stories of the week. Obviously, the number one story in Denver was the primaries, and especially the surprise victory of congressional candidate Melat Kiros. And I have to say, a come-from-behind victory for Phil Weiser, Attorney General, in the Democratic primary for governor. And we are going to get into all of that and more. There's so many narratives. There's so much new information coming out about these votes. And I've got one of my absolute favorite people to talk to about politics to get into all of it. He is the founder and editor-in-chief of the investigative news site, The Lever. Welcome back, David Sirota.
Thanks for having me.
How you feeling this morning, David? Just big picture, election-wise.
Pretty good. I to be honest, what happened in the election was not a surprise to me. I know it was a surprise to a lot of folks looking at our state from the outside, but I think the anti-establishment, anti-incumbent feeling, that vector, finally hit Colorado. And I say finally because it's been a long time since anything like this has happened. But I always thought that it was long overdue, and that the political environment right now was teed up for the kind of results that we saw this week, where the power of incumbency ended up being actually not a power at all. It actually ended up being a huge drag in a lot of ways on people running for office.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, and you deserve a lot of credit. I mean, last week on the show, we previewed the election, and this was what you said was happening. And here we see it in the voting results. But before we get any deeper into that, I do have a little bit of business. Like I said, this is the last show of the week here for us on CityCast Denver, but you will be getting something in the feed fresh on Friday, July 3rd. It is a special treat from our Your City Could Be Better, which is the CityCast sort of spin-off show that we do, hosted by CEO David Plotz. This one's a little bit different. It's not going to be like focus on a city and a solution they're trying. This week, Twin Cities host / trivia master Sean McPherson is taking over as host to quiz David Plotz and author Alexandra Petrie on U.S. trivia. It's going to be a little Independence Day themed trivia contest. So multiple rounds. There's a whole road trip section they're doing. I haven't heard the episode. It seems like fun to me. It's a real 3rd of July celebration is what we're aiming for here. David, road trip summer. I want to ask you about this. Last summer, I think we talked about you and your kids going to like a drive-in movie theater in the San Luis Valley. Do you have road trips planned this year?
We did our road trip for the first time. We did what I would call the 285 road trip.
Okay.
We went down 285. We went to Pagosa Springs, which was amazing. And then we went out to Durango, saw Mesa Verde, which was unbelievable. And then on our way back, we hit the Mount Princeton Hot Springs. It was a Griswold-esque trip, and it was everything that I had hoped it would be.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Mesa Verde really is special.
Incredible.
I mean, talking about putting this election in perspective, oh my God. I mean, the size of that site and how many cliff dwellings all around that national park. Like, you see the photos, you just think like, oh, there's that one big one. But like, no, this is it's kind of a city.
Yeah, it's really hard to put into words what is there and how amazing it is. And it's just an amazing part of the state.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get back into the politics. The anti-establishment theme. You talked about the national press kind of parachuting in for this one, which was such a weird phenomenon in the last week or so. I feel like everybody was maybe in newsrooms. Maybe I'm imagining this, but like in the Politico newsroom after that Mamdani sweep in the New York primaries, I'm thinking folks were like, ooh, what's next? Where are we going to
Totally.
see this next? And then
Totally.
here's Colorado. We've got the races. We've got all the pieces of the puzzle. The story's already written. Just like welcome into the parties.
I think that's exactly right. And I do think what's going on in Denver is part of a national trend. I do think that older incumbent Democratic lawmakers who've been in office for 1,000 years and who don't, frankly, have a lot to show for it are incredibly vulnerable. I mean, I think my feeling about Diana DeGette is she's had a political strategy for 30 years that has worked for her for 30 years. And she doesn't have to be all that present in the community. She doesn't have to have much of a known brand, but that she has voted a relatively progressive line in Congress. The calculation being that no one will be able to get to her progressive left. There will be nothing for an opponent to run a campaign against her on. But the efficacy of that strategy ran out in this election. And I think that's in part generational. I think it's in part this moment of anti-establishment desire for change. And I think that the Melat ran a really good campaign in terms of communication, message discipline, and using new technologies, relatively new technologies, social media, to combat the spending on traditional media that happened against her.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add to that list of like how this happened was, Diana DeGette, 30 years in office. She had this one strategy. She did the same thing, and the city changed out from under her.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, think about the demographics over the last 15 years. I was just doing some like back of the napkin math the other day about like exactly how many of these voters that are going to be participating in these primaries even lived in Denver when she was first elected. And it was less than half. I mean, it's a majority new people was what I was finding by the math. And like, these are people who, what are her big accomplishments in the last 15 years? Like, what do they know of her?
I think the accomplishment thing, I put that in quotes, is very difficult for any individual member of Congress. Like, I think that's really difficult, right? I mean, because that was the argument that they threw at Bernie Sanders back in the 2020 and 2016 presidential races. Oh, he didn't do anything. Now, first of all, that wasn't actually true. I mean, you could trace the legislative history. But second of all, you're working in an institution where things are being done essentially collectively, right? There's 535 members of Congress. Whether or not you have your name on a bill doesn't actually reflect whether you are doing something. I certainly do think that making clear to your base and to your voters what you are working on, what you are doing, what you think is important is part of this. And I do not think Diana DeGette did a very good job of that, and just expected, I think, that the power of incumbency would win the day. And in some senses, you can understand how she thought that, because that had worked for her up until it didn't work. So that said, I'm also was kind of wondering, how did she not see this coming? It really seemed like she only kicked any kind of campaign into gear in the last, month, 6 weeks, right? I don't understand how you could be so asleep at the wheel that you don't see this coming from a mile away. It's kind of bizarre.
Well, I think Melat Kiros looked like all of the previous challengers up into the county assembly. And she had just gotten, I'm talking about Kiros, had just gotten the DSA endorsement. She got the backing of the DSA, which I think is an ascendant group and a very adept organizing infrastructure here in Denver. It's one of their most popular cities across the country, the DSA. And there's some real sharks that came out for Kiros and gave her a surprise victory that gave her a narrative. And I happen to know from my own reporting that after that county assembly, DeGette fired her campaign manager. Like she knew it too. She knew it right then that something was probably already broken. And it was going to be really hard to fix it at that point, because her image as a candidate, what she had to run on, it was kind of locked in. And I mean, that must have been a scary moment, honestly. Like, I don't know what that meeting was like for her after that, but I don't know how you turn it around. And obviously she didn't either.
Yeah. And I think from there, that was it. It was all downhill for her. And even, by the way, when she realized belatedly that she had a problem, I found her message to be incredibly tone deaf. It was incredibly Washington. It was like, I'm going to be the chairperson of the specific committee that can deal with Medicare for all. It was so technical. It was so wonky. It just wasn't meeting the vibe of the moment. And it certainly wasn't meeting the new demands of the attention economy. Now, I will say this. I have some big laments about how the attention economy in Denver and nationally is affecting our elections. I am worried that in an attention economy that's dominated by an algorithm and dominated by social media, that we end up as voters focusing on the highest profile races, whether or not those races happen to be for the most important, most powerful jobs in our state, in our community. Example, the House race in Denver got a ton of attention. And I understand it is an important race. I'm not saying it's not important.
This is Kiros to get, the U.S. House
right.
You're talking about, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You go one level down, the Attorney General race barely got any attention. And that is definitely one of the most powerful jobs in our state, and also has serious national implications in the sense that attorneys general can file all sorts of very important lawsuits that direct and can shape public policy. I bring up this example as something I'm worried about moving forward in Colorado politics, which is the highest profile races for the sort of attention jobs, right? The Washington, D.C. jobs get a ton of attention, but a lot of people don't have any idea what is going on one level down in jobs that are just as powerful for us, arguably in some cases more powerful for things that are happening in our state.
This episode is brought to you by the Vail Wine Classic. Featuring international wines and spirits, as well as Colorado's home favorites like Carboy Winery, Outer Range Brewing, and Woody Creek Distillers, the Vail Wine Classic is where it's at. While being wine-centric, there's something for everyone at this amazing weekend in the heart of the Rocky Mountains. At the grand tasting, drink lovers can enjoy unlimited samplings of over 300 wines, spirits, and brews, spanning everything from West Coast vineyards to Argentinian makers and gourmet local food. The Vail Wine Classic, happening August 6th through the 8th, includes programming such as sommelier-led wine hikes, paired lunches and dinners at Vail's top restaurants, and an exclusive sunset showcase called Best of Fests, featuring 90-plus rated wines overlooking the Gore Range. Ticket prices go up as it gets closer to the big event, but you can save money by buying sooner. Just use code CITYCAST at checkout for $10 off. For tickets and a full schedule, visit VailWineClassic.com. And don't forget to use code CITYCAST for $10 off.
Hi, I'm David Plotz. I'm the CEO of CityCast, a podcast network that includes this show you're listening to, and also 12 other CityCasts in 12 other cities. And each one knows their city as well as your local team knows yours. So isn't it time we connected them? Don't you want to know how they're tackling their bike lane problems and housing challenges and sidewalk dog poop crises? That's why I'm hosting a new podcast called Your City Could Be Better. Because it could be. Every week, I'll chat with a different host in our CityCast network about what their cities are doing right and wrong, the weird things they're trying, and the surprising successes, so that we can all learn how to make our cities a little bit better. Listen to Your City Could Be Better on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Before we move too far on from DeGette, I wanted to share one anecdote about her, just that I thought, like, I probably should have known that this was going to happen, but we reached out to all the candidates in that race, Wanda James, Melat Kiros, and Diana DeGette for interviews. I had been working on this for months, trying to build these relationships, and Diana DeGette said no. She did not have time for this request, as I was told, I think about a month before the election, although we had been talking much more than that. And at that point, we were faced with a quandary, and it looked like Michael Bennet was going to possibly not do another interview with us as well. So we had two candidates say no. And you and I talked about this at one point. Like, what do you do? Like, you want to inform people about who these candidates are. So we were discussing different options. And one of the options for Diana to get, because for Michael Bennet, we had a pretty recent interview from back in December where we talked about his campaign, was like, okay, well, we could rerun that. That'd be good for him. That'd be useful. And then for DeGette, we looked at our archives. And the only time she's ever been on the show, the only time we ever reached out to her before this, was when she was one of the lone and last voices among the Democratic Party to stick with Joe Biden. After Michael Bennet had called on him to step aside, after many other leaders had called on him to step aside, Diana DeGette, for 30 minutes, sat down with us. This was after Biden's disastrous debate performance with Trump. And she said, he's the guy. Now, whether or not she was right or wrong, like looking back on that, had we played that interview again in this moment, given the dynamics of this race, I felt like that would have been unfair to her. That would have been like a jab to remind people of how entrenched in the establishment and the upper echelons of the Democratic Party she is.
And I think that whole anecdote says it all, actually. Her not talking to you says it all, right? I mean, that exemplifies somebody who didn't really prioritize being in touch with the community, getting a message out to the community. Like, I mean, frankly, Denver's member of Congress should be on your show frequently. Whoever that person is, that should be a key part of their job, is letting people know what they're doing, what they're trying to do for the community. And I just think that was never part of late stage Diana DeGette, meaning the latter years. I've heard stories about when Diana DeGette first got elected and how, she was beloved in the community. I just think like late stage Diana DeGette, that was nowhere to be found.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing that does for the candidate is like, you hear what's important to people. Like you address questions, but you also can tell by what questions you're being asked what's important to people in your community.
100%.
And this is what Phil Weiser, I mean, you and I were both at Phil Weiser's victory party last night. How big of a theme was that for him? He was like, we did this together. I went and talked to as many people as I could. I learned this from former Governor Roy Romer, who is here. This was a campaign about listening to what mattered to you. And then what he was able to do is convert that back into policy proposals and rhetoric that connected because he was listening.
I mean, Phil ran a true grassroots campaign, an old style, old school, show up at every place he can kind of campaign. And it really paid off. Now, let's be clear. I think the political environment and the political situation benefited him in ways that were really, I think, boosted his campaign, right? He's running against the sort of picture of the establishment. A U.S. senator, long-time appointed U.S. senator, decides to come back and run for governor while still remaining in the Senate. There's an anti-establishment feeling right now across the country. People are not happy with their party's leadership. They're not happy with Washington. And it was a one-on-one race. Right there, it wasn't a multi-candidate race. So there wasn't going to be a situation where the anti-establishment vote is split, like we saw, for instance, in the Attorney General race. So there were a lot of structural parts of this race that were helping Phil Weiser, and he maximized it by running a campaign essentially about being present and listening and involving as much of the state as possible in his campaign, and with the promise of the same thing for his administration. And it really worked.
I think that allowed him to really thread the needle of this dynamic and kind of reap all the benefits of two sides of a conflict, because he was able to both be the anti-establishment candidate without being a really like a very far left candidate, or even have that, extreme or radical proposals at all. Him and Michael Bennet were so similar. A lot of people would say even Weiser's ideas were even a little bit more to the center than Bennet. Which to me, I'm looking at the national picture. I'm thinking like, are we going to start hearing about Weiser as a national like rising star? He seems to satisfy something about what the Democratic Party wants right now, like which polling would show they want both socialism and they want moderacy. So maybe that's Phil. He's the anti-establishment moderate somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I think that The thing I lament about this race, the gubernatorial, was it really didn't feel like it was about very much, in the sense of what each of these candidates would do specifically as governor. I think that was a real missed opportunity. I think that's not great that it wasn't clear when Michael Bennet is governor, he's going to do X, Y, and Z. When Phil Weiser is governor, he's going to do X, Y, and Z. Like, that just did not, I don't think, transmit. That's not what the race was about, I think, in most voters' minds. I think it was more Colorado has had a top-down Democratic Party culture for a very long time, and this is an opportunity to vote to change that with somebody who is a known commodity. Phil is a known quantity in the sense of he was able to cast himself as somewhat of the anti-establishment outsider, but he was also somebody people were relatively familiar with a credential that I think people respect. Oh, he's been Attorney General, so this is a relatively safe choice. So he checked all those boxes, and I think the challenge for him will be if people believe they now voted for change, then as governor, if he is ultimately, wins the general election, showing what that means, he'll have to fulfill that expectation and that mandate and sell that, I think, to the public about what kinds of changes he's making. Because I think if we have these elections where people believe they've voted for change and then they don't perceive that they've gotten real change, that then, 4 years later becomes part of the election itself. And hence the cycle continues where people keep voting for change. So again, I think the challenge for Phil is to define what kind of change he represents and infuse that with whatever gubernatorial administration he comes up to make the public understand this is what you voted for and I am delivering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think watching him legislate will be interesting. See how he navigates a legislature, because he has never done this before. That he has no experience in that. He is a very well-credentialed lawyer. Legislator, not at all.
But I think I would correct you a little bit in the sense of, or I would disagree slightly. The Attorney General's office actually is dealing with the legislature pretty frequently, asking them for new powers, et cetera, et cetera. I certainly agree. He's never been the executive in that situation, but I do think he has some experience with that'll serve him well. Melat has no experience in Congress. Now, I think for her, it's almost the good news is that when you're a junior member of the United States House, it's almost like your first couple terms, you can certainly use your office as a platform to give voice to issues, to try to build momentum, to move them forward in the House. But in terms of like the day-to-day mechanics of legislating, not a lot of that really happens when you're a freshman House member. If you're chairman of a chairperson of a subcommittee or a committee many years in, that's where that rubber really hits the road.
You are dancing just shy of a comparison I want to talk to you about in a few minutes, but we've got to one of my questions. I've got a whole batch of these. Next one is about a topic I know that is very important to you, money in politics. You've done a lot of work on this. I would say this was Kiros' number one issue. In our interview with her first 5 answers were all about money in politics, not necessarily what the questions were about. Phil Weiser also campaigned on it. He would talk a lot about how Michael Bennet was backed by dark money, big out-of-state donors. Although Weiser himself, Colorado Sun, reported a couple days before the day of the election that a super PAC supporting him got a $50,000 donation from a dark money group called Colorado Democracy Defense Fund. So it's one of those things where, like, I feel like a lot of candidates talk about it and then there's no big changes. Like, maybe everybody has different ideas and they can't come to agreement. But that's my question for you is, like, if these two candidates who just swept to victory on this message want big change on money in politics, what do you think Denverites can expect when it comes to real change?
It's a great question. And at that Weiser victory party, he said something to the effect of the future of Colorado will not be decided by out-of-state billionaires. So even in victory, he was essentially claiming that this as a victory for those who oppose big money buying our elections. So I think he sees this set of issues as a mandate. I presume Melat sees this as a mandate to really advance some real solutions here. I heard Melat on CityCast talk about public financing of elections. I would very much like to see her use her platform to introduce and push a public financing of elections bill at the congressional level. In our lifetime, a bill like that has 3 times gotten very close to actually passing, which would give candidates a way to run for office where they don't have to rely on private donors and super PACs and the like, where they raise a certain amount of small dollar contributions. They are given access to public funding so that their campaigns aren't relying on donors who want legislative favors when they're in office. Denver has this at the municipal level. It should be expanded to the federal level. And I think similarly with Phil Weiser at the gubernatorial level, there are various things that are at issue on campaign finance that he can actually do. He wrote an op-ed with Javi Mabry, the legislator, arguing that this state can pass a law to restrict and limit the effect of Citizens United by making it illegal under our corporate charter laws for companies to spend on elections. He has pledged to do that as governor. That can happen. We have a big loophole in our state disclosure laws. You just mentioned dark money contributions. The way the elections are running now in Colorado, there's a candidate who has to disclose the money that comes to them, but then there are these super PACs that support them. And the super PACs can get money not only from disclosed billionaires like Michael Bloomberg, they can get money from dark money groups, so you can't know who's actually funding their super PACs. We had passed a law a few years ago purporting to deal with this problem with super PAC undisclosed spending, but there was essentially a loophole put in there that didn't force the disclosure one level further. If a dark money group gives to a super PAC, the law that was supposed to fix this did not extend to that situation. The legislature and the new governor can pass a law requiring full disclosure, look through to know not only the names of the donors to the super PAC, but the names of the donors to the dark money groups giving to the super PAC. The state could also have a ballot measure at our ballot to fund a statewide public financing system for candidates. So there's a lot of running room for somebody like Phil Weiser on money and politics here. And I think, him yesterday night or this week claiming as a mandate to deal with money and politics, I think that's a real opportunity for him.
I agree. I mean, if I were him, that might be a good starting place next legislative session. Let me get back to that thing I was alluding to earlier. So you were talking about Kiros being a freshman representative and trying, what this next couple of years is going to be like. So that reminded me of this press release I got this morning from a group called Unite America, which is a group that worked on Kent Theory's ranked choice voting campaign a few years ago. I've kept in touch with them. I get press releases from them on days like today, where they will tell me things like, according to the Unite America Institute, only 25% of eligible voters in the Kiros-DeGette race participated in the Democratic primary that effectively sent Melat Kiros to Congress. They say that's 13% actually voted for Kiros, with 93% of the votes counted. So they're saying our current system is just not representative of what overall people in Denver want. And the quote, and this will drive it home, the quote from Unite America Executive Director Nick Troiano is, "Similar to Lauren Boebert's primary victory over Scott Tipton in 2020, a small and unrepresentative slice of the electorate decided a House seat in Colorado well before November." What do you make of that, David?
I mean, there's so many problems with this argument. First and foremost, Colorado is an open primary state. So independents had the power and the right to participate in all of these primaries if they so chose. I certainly think the critique of voter turnout is legitimate. We need to do a lot better job of, I think, as a society, of making it as easy as possible for people to turn out. Now, some people may be deliberately choosing not to turn out because they've just given up on the political system. That's a problem unto itself. That's a problem that transcends what we're talking about here, the rules of primaries and the way districts are drawn. If people are choosing not to participate, I don't think there's a way to actually force them to choose to participate. And then finally, I would say this. The other thing that's not mentioned in what you just said is that it's not like there isn't going to be a general election, right? To my mind, if we want these elections to be more, quote unquote, representative ultimately, because what we got through was just a primary. It was not the general election. Then I would argue in Denver's case, as an example, if you don't like that the winner of the primary is almost guaranteed to be the winner of the general, then create a better Republican Party. Create a better alternative party for the general election, right? In other words, the situation is that the Republican Party presumably is non-viable as an electoral force in Denver. And that seems to me to be a problem for the Republican Party, right? If the Republican Party wants to address that problem, it should probably try to address that problem. Maybe, for instance, by not making its party leader Donald Trump. Like that's one suggestion, right? And so I think it's the same thing for the Democrats in Republican-leaning districts. If the Democrats aren't competitive in the general elections of Republican-leaning districts, the Democratic Party should be asking questions about why is that and what can we do to change that, right? Changing the rule or discussing and hyper-focusing on the rules of the election itself, I think is an easy misdirect to the underlying problem that the parties haven't figured out or simply don't want to compete in some of these districts.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I mean, if you don't think there's a good competition, then maybe someone needs to compete a little harder.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean,
can we really say that this was not a good competition between DeGette and Kiros? I thought it was a healthy campaign.
Exactly. And voters will have their say in the general election. And yes, if Melat Kiros wins by 80%, the takeaway from that is, well, the Republican Party is non-viable in Denver. And that's no one's fault other than the Republican Party.
All right. I think, David, we should go to a quick break and come back with the best way to end the week, wins and fails. And I made a rule on this one, no election stuff.
This do
is
it.
Non-election wins and fails after the break. All right, we're back. Wins and fails of the week. It's the last show of the week. Happy July 4th, everybody. We're going to do a little Rocky Mountain highs and lows. This is where each of us brought a recent local something. One we think is a win, one we think is a fail. We're going to talk about them. We'll do fails first, and I will start. I got to give it up to this redistricting effort. I said no election news, but this is still politics.
Yeah, it's politics.
The Colorado Supreme Court this week rejected multiple ballot measures that would have allowed Democrats to draw a much more friendly electoral map in this state. I know a lot of people were very excited about this effort, potentially voting on it in the fall for a plan that some people would say could have sent at least 7 Democrats to Congress from Colorado, as opposed to the 4-4 split we have now in our 8 districts. The court said the proposed measures violated the requirement that ballot measures encompass only a single subject and would therefore have the potential for log rolling, which is when one thing rolls into another and people don't know how to implement it or what it means when they're voting. And so, yeah, I mean, obviously that's a fail. Didn't work out. A lot of people were excited about it. So redistricting, not going to happen here in Colorado. David, how about you?
My fail is the decision by iHeartRadio to end the radio show of the great Brett Saunders, who is essentially the voice of Denver. No disrespect to CityCast, sorry, but Brett's been here for 30 years. KBCO's Brett Saunders. He's the best. He's one of my best friends. I think the outpouring of support for Brett upon this news was incredible, well-deserved. I think that decision, I do not understand it. And by the way, I met Brett working at what was then called Clear Channel. That's where I met him. Look, the radio industry has gone through a ton of transition. I from the outside, I presume the decision wasn't personal. It's a part of sort of mass layoffs in that industry. But losing a true voice of Denver, a true voice of Colorado on the airwaves, at least for now, is a big fail. It's not Brett's fail. It's like in my view, it's like the corporate decision is a fail. And I'm really hoping to see Brett back on in some capacity in Colorado media soon.
Yeah, that was very hard news. I mean, this is a tough industry that we work in, and
it is.
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of respect for what he does, and it'd be nice to meet him. I never met him. Maybe
Well, let's go to Esther's and get a beer.
Sometime.
Yeah,
Hey,
we should
you
do
got it. You got it. All right, let's talk about wins. You want to go first, David, for wins?
Sure.
Go for it.
Okay, so apparently 3 of America's most coveted ice cream places are here in Denver, according to Yelp. Now, I've got a dispute with this a little bit, at least with Yelp folks. But apparently, Little Man was near the top of the list. Little Man, specifically over in Lodo. I think there were 3 here. So Little Man was near the top. Another Little Man was on the list, the Congress Park Little Man.
Oh yeah, the Sweet Cooey's.
Yeah, that's right. Sweet Cooey's was 38. And here's where I'm the dispute. Okay, that the third one, Bonnie Bray, was apparently it was on the list. Good for Bonnie Bray, but it was lower than the 2 Little Mans. And like, I just dispute that. Like, I just think I'm sorry. That's just, you're just wrong. Like, like the Yelp, and I got to look at the Yelp criteria here. It's among the platform's top most saved sweet spots. So I guess that's a sign of support, but most bookmarked. But I got to say, I like Little Man. Like, Little Man's solid. Okay. But like, no,
very tempered praise.
Like I feel very passionately about this, that like, you are not getting better ice cream in Denver unless than at Bonnie Bray. Like, Bonnie Bray takes the cake. Like, I feel like an expert on this, and this is not just Southeast Denver pride. I believe Bonnie Bray should have been higher on that list, but I'm glad it was on the list. So all of this is a win for our city.
I had an idea about Little Man. This is such a nothing idea, but I want to share it because I was really proud of myself for this. But you know how they have an ice cream flavor that's like 16th Street chocolate?
Yeah.
I feel like they should sell a special item on their menu called the 16th Street Malt. I think that would do well. I think that's just like a cute thing that
that's good.
It's right there for them.
That's good. Make it happen.
Anyway. All right, my win. Man, there were a couple that were good, but I read in Naked Denver, which is a great Instagram account. If you want to know what's going on when it comes to like commercial real estate, new projects, Naked Denver. They had the news this week that 92 units of LGBTQ plus affirming senior housing is planned at York Street Yards. The Center on Colfax is involved in this project. So that's the win part, because like, obviously housing much needed, seems like a really cool project for a community that could use it. And also, this particular lot, like, this is why I wanted to talk about it, but I happen to have spent a lot of time at York Street Yards lately. Kind of a weird development. Lots of parking lots intermixed with this new commercial thing they're trying to get started. So absolutely could use the housing to bring people to like shop at these businesses. But currently this lot is full of Rivian trucks. It's just a giant sea of Rivians in Denver. If you want to, and that's where this housing thing is going to be built.
Wow.
Yeah. Just like a weird little corner of the city where there's like 1,000 Rivians.
Good
and
win, man.
That's the win.
That sounds like a better
Rivians.
Use of the space than an armada of Rivians.
Well, that's election week, folks. We made it to the end. Thanks for being here with me, David Sirota. This was fun. I really had a good time.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
All right. See ya. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Again, no new pod, but your city will be better. We'll be in the feed. Same in the newsletter. No new newsletter. So see y'all after the holiday.
Hey, CityCast Content Director Andrea Salenzi here. There are some things we do outside that I look forward to all year long. Picking apples in the fall, winter light shows, food festivals on a really hot summer night. And I'm here to suggest a new tradition you're going to have to experience for yourself. Releasing a glowing lantern into the water at sunset, right in the middle of your beautiful city, surrounded by hundreds of your neighbors doing the exact same thing. That's what I'm talking about today with Tess Rouser, the marketing manager for the Water Lantern Festival. Hey, Tess.
Hi, Andrea. How are you?
Oh, I'm so excited for folks to picture what this festival really looks like. So The Water Lantern Festival happens in cities all over the country. If you're hearing this, it's coming to your city soon. So for someone who's never been, what is it actually like to be there?
The Water Lantern Festival isn't your typical festival. Yes, when you arrive, there are food trucks and local vendors. There's family activities, games going on, a scavenger hunt. It's very lively, fun, upbeat music going on. But the event definitely turns inward and more reflective as the night goes on. It really pivots and the music changes and the whole vibe changes. So it's almost the best of both worlds. Guests are encouraged to write on their lanterns, and everyone gathers by the water at sunset to release their lanterns. That's definitely the peak of the event. Watching hundreds or even sometimes thousands of lanterns on the water is incredibly peaceful and emotional. People often tell us that it's a moment that stays with them long after the night ends.
So everyone who attends gets to personalize their own lantern before releasing it in the water. What have you seen people write or draw on their lanterns?
Yes, so each ticket comes with a lantern that comes with everything you'll need for the evening. Your markers, the biodegradable paper that you can write on or design. And that's one of the most important parts of the event. People write, all kinds of things. Messages of love or hope or remembrance or gratitude, or sometimes people are setting intentions or goals for what they want to do that year. More of a personal story for me. I lost my nephew 3 years ago, and there was a lantern festival near me on his angelversary 2 years after. And it was the most incredible and meaningful experience that I was able to have with my family, where we came and remembered him and honored him and shared stories about him and released it onto the water in a glowing just moment of remembrance. But honestly, we see so many things. We see lots of proposals. There's nothing like seeing someone down on one knee proposing in front of just thousands of lanterns on the water. So it's fun because every lantern tells a personal story, but when they're released together, it becomes a meaningful and powerful shared moment.
So it's shared grief or shared celebration. It's kind of all of it.
It is. It's all of it. You'll see names, you'll see dates, hearts, drawings, but even sometimes just a single word that holds a lot of meaning.
So when you look out at the crowd at one of these festivals, what do you see? Is this families, couples? Who's the attendee?
It's really a diverse crowd, which is something we absolutely love. You'll see the families with kids, couples, friends groups, lots of girls' nights with their charcuterie boards and blankets and pillows that they brought to set up camp for the night. There isn't one type of attendee, and that's something we absolutely love. So it definitely brings together people from all walks of life.
Can you give me the scale of Water Lantern Festival? How long has this been going on? How many cities have you been to? How many people have released a lantern into the water?
Yes, we actually just surpassed our 2 million lanterns being released into the water. So the largest lantern festival of its kind. We've been in business for 9 years. So what started as just a small community gathering has expanded and grown to over 175 different cities, nationwide and now worldwide, expanding into Australia, Canada, the UK, Mexico here in a few weeks. So it's really fun to be able to bring this experience of love and hope and connection to the world.
Is there anything else someone should know before they get their ticket? Any tips for attending?
I'd encourage people to come with an open heart and to give themselves time to enjoy the experience from start to finish. It's not meant to be a fast-paced event. It's meant to slow you down and create space for that reflection and connection. So it's always a good idea to come early so you can still hit the food trucks, the music, the vendors, the booths, the scavenger hunt, but then still have time to sit and personalize your lantern and just take everything in and turn more inward.
Tess, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Andrea.
If you want to find a Water Lantern Festival near you and grab tickets, just head to waterlanternfestival.com. You can search for your city there, and it's a good idea to get your tickets in advance since many events do sell out. And for the latest updates, you can follow them on social media at Water Lantern Festival. Thanks for listening.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. Our producers this week were Elizabeth Kama, Matthew Rogers, me, Paul Karolyi, and Olivia Jewel Love, who honestly did it all this week. She really went above and beyond. Shout out to Olivia. Alyssa Castles and Will Fulton worked on our morning newsletter. Bree Davies is our host, and we'll be back soon. Our music is by Los Mocachetes, with additional mixing by Tyler Lindgren. Our ad music is by Cuba Quartet from Epidemic Sounds via Getty Images. If you haven't already, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, follow us on Instagram at CityCastDenver, and tell a friend about us the next time you see them. You can support the show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Denver neighbor today at membership.citycast.fm. Find out what we said in that bonus segment that you missed. You can sign up for our daily newsletter and learn more about us, denver.citycast.fm. And wow, what a week. See y'all after the holiday weekend.